Okay, welcome to our Bucky call tonight. It's Saturday, July 16 and 17. Manu, how are you feeling and what do you expect to get out of tonight's call?
Feel good. It's nice to have Kelly around there. You know, and it looks on fire, at least compared to the last time. So there's going to be a lot. What I expect is that we continue on this and we always look at the practical side of it and the significance of what it means today. Utopia or Oblivion and design initiative. So what is it that can be made relevant in the context that we are living today and the tomorrow that we're dreaming? So Anne, how do you feel? What do you expect?
Thank you, Manu. Yeah, I do. Very, very good to have Kelly back. Yes, and I'm actually expecting Kelly to throw us a ball curve here and there, curveball here and there, and looking forward to that in our discussions as we normally do on Sundays. Thank you very much. And Kelly, how do you feel and what do you expect to get out today?
I'm feeling much better today. I've been feeling really well since I had really low iron. My iron was at about 5%, and I never realized it, but I've had a couple iron boosts, and I'm feeling much better now. Yeah, for me, it's always about talking about what's relevant in today, and I think that for me these calls have got too technical, to the point, versus just a conversation with people. It's not so much about Fuller, it's about each person on the call, as far as I'm concerned. And Fuller is the thing that you talk about, but it's always nice to talk to the people on the call. So that's how I'm feeling. That's where I'm at. Susan, you're here. How are you feeling, and what do you want to get out of it today?
Boy, I'm feeling remarkably blessed. We've got a storm raging and the power's been flipping. So I'm glad to be here with you. And Kelly, you're here. You're my personal celebrity. And so appreciative to see you. I just know that my perspective will be expanded and looking forward to it. Joseph, how do you feel and what would you like to get out of today?
I'm feeling a little bit rushed. I can't find my Bucky book where I keep most of my notes, but Kelly's here. Kelly, it was amazing how grateful we are to have you in our group, and and people were talking about how lucky we are to have you in our lives the other day, and I thought back to things like where you emailed me when we had the storm in Philadelphia, just to check to see how I was doing, and I thought back to the time that was your grandkid's birthday and how you really focus on the things that matter the most. So it's really, really good to see you. Really, really good to see you. I'm just looking forward to learning more about Utopia and Oblivion, and I'm happy. Just happy to be here today with everybody, and my utmost apologies for being late. So I know that's when I think of Manu up at 5 a.m. It's pretty much, that's kind of unacceptable. So anyway, Steve, I'm assuming you're the only one left. So okay, sorry about that, my friend. How you feeling? What would you like to take away from today?
Well, I'm actually feeling pretty good. It's always great to see Kelly on the call and great to see these faces. I love all the energy here, and I'm excited. This book, Design Discipline, this idea of Oblivion versus Utopia. I have some quotes here from previous Bucky calls on that. One of them is from this book, and I'm really excited. It's amazing how Bucky, written in roughly 65, published in 69, wrote this book and was so prophetic in so many ways. Boggles my mind. So I'm looking forward to moving down the list, our pages, and having a conversation. So we'll go from there. And Joe, if you could pull up your copy of this book, do you have the PDF? Just in case my computer goes weird, you can take it. I went in to the service guy today and had them redo some stuff. So I plan on having no issues, but if an event it happens, why, then we can go from there. Okay, so we left off last week on page 14, and here we go. Maybe you can read from Dominant Concepts, but I'm going to read this previous paragraph to kind of set off what our conversation is tonight. Though there are many special concepts which constantly reoccur in my day-to-day deliberations, I find that there are 14 which dominate. All of these overlap integratingly. A part of the content of one will of necessity often reappear under the concepts due to the synergetic interrelationships. I will group and discuss all the secondary concepts unique to the philosophy under the following 14 main concepts. So that kind of sets up our introduction, and we actually reviewed these last time. Dominant concepts are: number 1, universe; number 2, humanity; number 3, children; number 4, teleology or teleology; number 5, reform the environment; number 6, general system theory; number 7, industrialization; number 8, design science; number 9, service industries; number 10, ephemeralization and invisible commonwealth. Interesting. Invisible commonwealth. Prime design initiative, self-disciplines, comprehensive coordination, and number 14, world community and sub-communities of world man. Okay, any comments and questions on this kind of introductory process right at this point?
Actually, the invisible commonwealth is what I'm looking at. Last night, I rewatched, after I don't know how many decades, this Gods Must Be Crazy.
Yeah.
And yeah, so the Bushmen of the Kalahari, they literally, there's no ownership. It just belongs to everybody else. And it was such a reminder, of how the world is functioning right now. And then I see this invisible commonwealth. It should be common wealth. Yeah. Wealth should be common for everybody. I like that.
Good. Comments, questions?
Self-disciplines.
What's that, Manu?
Self-disciplines, what does it mean?
Yeah. That's what we're gonna be doing tonight, is we're gonna go down through each one of these words and definitions. Go ahead.
I was gonna another thing that I was gonna bring up is ephemeralization and invisible commonwealth.
Yeah.
What is meant by that? I know ephemeralization, it's obviously doing more and more with less and less.
Yeah.
Up until the point that it's invisible. I mean, I don't know what invisible commonwealth, actually. I'm not clear on that.
Cool. Any other comments or questions?
Yeah, I'd like to say something about the self-discipline, because one of the things that we realize is that there's this mistaken identity, that the mistaken misconception that if you force discipline on people, that they automatically will have self-discipline. So over the years, as we handle the children, we realize that what a lot of people think of discipline is actually external discipline. So it is by fear and by force, which is primarily all across so many countries, right? When the teaching is very traditional. And this is one of my ex-student who's my business partner and owns the school with me and my team. he pointed this out, and that's what we tell parents now, because every now and then, no, not every now, very often, when people see the chaos in our school, they always ask, so what about discipline? When we talk about how much fun the kids are having, they ask, what about discipline? When we talk about doing all this like the work where the students do a lot of discussions and crazy games and so on, they ask, what about discipline? And so now the question that we ask the parents in return is, what do you mean by discipline? What do you mean by discipline, you know? And then we said, if it is for them to listen to you and the teachers and follow instructions, then it is not discipline, it's obedience. It's complete and total obedience that people are asking, parents are looking for, and schools are nurturing, you know, in students. So we have been doing more social media postings about that, but I think it should be actually made bigger than that. And obedience doesn't get you what you want from your children. A thinking kid, a creative kid, a confident kid, it just eliminates everything. So the difference then is to teach self-discipline, and that's a whole different ballgame altogether. And a lot of Asians don't understand that. So that's something to put out there. Yeah.
But if I may say something, I mean, I hear what you're saying, Anne, but I don't know if I'm right here, but I thought also that self-discipline was the things that you do consistently towards something. Let me take an example. Health. Your eating habits, what are they? So what are you ingesting in order to reach the level of health that you desire? I would see that as self-discipline, that in the context of education. It is less of how do I maintain you in the lane. So the discipline as understood in the context of school. I don't know if I'm erring here, but I also understand self-discipline by you've learned about the principles, you see how they are operating. Now, how do I arrange my me to be able to be, I wouldn't dare say in sync, but a little bit in sync with how those principles operate?
Yeah. Sorry.
Go ahead.
Okay. I just want to add something here, because when people think about self-discipline, for us, it's about what you do when no one is looking, you know, being accountable to yourself, to the community and the people around you. And we've got a way of doing it with the students without having to go on the external discipline because when people talk about discipline, they're talking about punishment. We went the other way. When we deal with discipline, is actually about giving kids the feedback. The minute they do something good, you give them feedback, and they'll do more of what is right, what is like more self-regulatory kind of behaviors, right? So the minute you do more of that, and there's a book that actually supports what we do. It's called Well Done. I'm not sure if you've read it before. It's the writers actually, they were in San Diego, you know, the Sea World, and they saw how the whales, the killer whales, you know, performed and, you know, would take instructions and so on and so forth. It came from watching that, and they spoke to the trainers, and a whole book came out of it. And they don't only have one book, they have Well Done for parenting, Well Done for schools as well. And basically what it's all about is the power of positive relationships. So discipline can come from that space. And that's what we've been doing all along, you know. The kids, they have to come on time for sure. But instead of disciplining them whenever they're late, which is all purely punishments, we start school on time. So the kids know that the minute they're there, the teachers will respect their time and will go for it rather than wait for those who are late, which is primarily what a lot of schools in Malaysia would do and people around would do. So we just pump, we go on time, and the kids who are there, they get more. So that's how we create the discipline. And things like like health, for instance, what we do is that we take the exercises and the sports as seriously as we do the studies, you know, whether it's physics or chemistry. It's just about doing that. And when the minute the kids see that you're very serious about it without just punishing, it's more about making sure the exercises make sense, it's fun, it is, and they learn a lot and they know how to apply for themselves. And so our students are much, much fitter than most kids in any of the other schools where they do external discipline, you know, and those, so anyway, I just want to share with you that it doesn't mean that when we have fun, like we do all those things, that the discipline gets pushed by the wayside. Our students know it's about privilege. It's about privilege and being responsible for that privilege that we give them. And yeah, we do punish too by removing the privilege. And it's the actions rather than the yelling and so on. Yeah. Okay. So anyway, just to put it there, that doesn't mean there isn't discipline.
Cool.
Can be done.
Yep.
Any other comments or questions?
I'll just make a really quick comment. You know, I'm actually reading a book about incentives that actually touches upon some of these things. And then I'll actually send some of that information along to you, and about how incentives work in a knowledge-based economy versus traditional incentives work with a more carrot and stick. But it's an interesting book. But one of the things that Manu had mentioned that I think is really, really important is that when we're talking about self-discipline, and you need to have a set of generalized principles in order to, so that you actually are working with it in accordance with something, so that you're actually, you know, you have a target to move towards. So I just think that that's kind of critical, because otherwise, you know, if you have to identify what you value, and I do like the way Manu put it, is that you're consistently moving towards something. But again, you have to, there's a whole framework that comes along with that.
Yep.
And
I like that.
On this subject of self-discipline, actual fact, it will be very interesting to read what Bucky said in concept 12. If it's not disorderly, we haven't got to go, I don't think. If it is of interest, let's read it. And it's quite enlightening.
You mean further down in the book?
You mean go right to
yes,
12?
On 12, yes. If you go to 12.
I would like to proceed in some kind of order. If we go to 12, then we have to remember to come back. Let's start with 1 and go down. I want to just say too that I think this obedience thing is really a profound concept, Dan. I was just listening to a thing on obedience, and obedience kills creativity. You know, and the universe demands, right now, our universe is demanding creativity. There are in 5 years, most people will be doing jobs that don't even have descriptions yet. And if without creativity, there is no hope. And obedience actually undermines creativity. And as I was reviewing this article or podcast I heard, the essential element of creativity is authenticity. That when I become authentic to myself is when I'm most creative. And I can't be creative if I'm being obedient. And that's where the concept, as Manu points out, of self-discipline is really profound. So I can't wait to get to 12, Manu. I'm excited to get to 12. Let's start with concept number 1, if that's okay. I don't want to get ahead of ourselves and then be all confused. So Joe, how do you feel about reading tonight?
Sure. Yep, absolutely. Concept 1, universe. Non-instantaneity, non-simultaneity, physical and metaphysical regeneration, irreversible of evolution, irreversibility and of metaphysical comprehension of physical.
Okay,
I
let's
start.
pause right there.
Okay.
Yeah, what?
Okay, I was going to start with the next paragraph, but that's okay.
Well, let's read that first paragraph again, because this is filled with Bucky terminologies, right? He makes up his own words, or at least words that are very uncommon. Do you want to read it one more time and just go through each phrase real slowly?
Non-instantaneity. Sorry,
Right. Non-simultaneity.
simultaneity,
Yeah.
physical and metaphysical regeneration, irreversibility of evolution,
Yeah.
irreversible of metaphysical comprehension of physical.
Yeah. Profound, huh? Comments, questions, or we'll just continue to read?
Non-simultaneity almost sounds like Bucky is pitching out the principle that time exists.
That's true.
Interesting. Let's see what he does have to say. Other comments, questions? Go ahead.
Yeah, the irreversibility of metaphysical comprehension of physical.
Yeah. Good. Continue. Go ahead.
Yeah, because I'm thinking, because we figure out scientifically, I guess, or we figure out how things work physically, right? And then there have been times when we have to go back and change whatever it is that we know of the physical. So wouldn't that be reversing the comprehension? I just wondering. Yeah, that's my question.
Yeah. Comments or questions?
Hmm.
Let's read on about it and see what he has to say. Any comments or questions on that?
Nope.
All right, let's go for it, Joe.
Start with my own definition. Universe is the aggregate of all humanities, all time, consciously apprehended and communicated experiences. The communication may be to self or others. It is the apprehending formulation of the information regarding the experiences that constitutes original consciousness.
Wow.
The physicist.
Let's don't go too fast, Joe.
Okay, no, sure.
Universe is the aggregate of all humanities, all time, consciously apprehended and communicated experiences. This is all time, right? So if it's all time, that means the past, the present, and the future.
It also means the universe is finite.
No, it doesn't say it doesn't say the future.
It doesn't
It's
say
all,
what.
yes, it's all the known, all the bad, I would say, experience, all the recorded experience.
Consciously apprehended and communicated experiences.
Yes.
That would be past and present. I don't think you get to loop future in there yet.
Okay, good comment. Thank you.
That was my news comment.
All right. Go ahead, Joe. Sorry for slowing you down.
That's quite all right. The physicist's law of conservation of energy, which states the energy may be neither created nor destroyed, ergo is finite, embraces only the physical aspects of experience. It excludes all metaphysical aspects of experience.
Well, let's see. Comments or questions on that? Okay, we'll continue.
That energy may not be created or destroyed.
Yeah.
Not sure. I mean, I don't know if I necessarily, why can't it be destroyed?
It changes form, I think would be the argument.
Okay.
I take a log and burn it, I get ashes and I get heat and I get gases. but nothing is destroyed. Go ahead.
So it's not, okay, so it's not erased from, okay,
Right.
that makes sense.
The one that excludes, that says it excludes all metaphysical aspects of experience. You know, right now I'm doing a lot of qigong exercises. You know, the Chinese exercise of dealing with the qi, the energy, right? And I think that's one of those that to a lot of people is pretty metaphysical. And I'm not sure if science has explained it, because I can literally feel the qi in my hands, you know. It can be in the form of just weight, but you can literally feel it tingling around, and even being able to feel it as a ball, and at times as and the heat coming up from the hand. So I don't know if there's a science that explains that, but would that be what this statement is referring to, you know? So when I read that, that's what comes to mind. It's until the qi can literally move your body to do all sorts of things. And I had an experience about a couple of, when I started it about a week in, and I knew the detox was happening. I had this pain in my abdomen, you know, and I knew I was detoxing. I knew it, and it didn't feel like the regular pain, like if you get food poisoning and so on. So that would be metaphysical, yeah, correct?
Your knowledge is metaphysical, true? Yeah, it's weightless.
It's, sorry, say it again.
I say your feeling or your knowledge is metaphysical.
Right. Okay. Okay.
And it's metaphysical because it's weightless. There's no weight to it. You feel.
Ah. Okay. Sure. Yep. It's true. Thank you.
Well, and I'm curious as to what I mean, if universe is the aggregate of all humanity's consciously apprehended and communicated experiences, what about unconsciously apprehended or communicated? If I do a particular body language, I communicate something. I communicate something that I'm not particularly conscious about. And then what does that have to do with metaphysical universe, metaphysical reality?
I think
No,
you
it
are.
has to do with the unknown.
Mm.
Universe is the known, and it has to do with the unknown.
Oh, that's a good point.
Yeah, if we go back to the hierarchies that we got out of, I think it was Synergetics a month or so ago when we were doing that, universe was listed separately. Yeah.
Oh, that's right.
Universe is the known. Universe is a structure. Universe, there are laws that we know at this time. But universe keep on changing. It's finite, but keep on changing. Because our pursuit of veritas is always in motion. It progresses, regresses, but it's always, the boundary is always changing.
That's helpful, Manu. Thank you for reminding me of that chart.
I have a question, Kelly. Earlier, when we started the meeting today, right? You mentioned that we're going too technical. Is this us going too technical, or maybe if you can share with us what it is that you're thinking about when you made that comment?
Well, I think now we're going too technical. We're going too deep. You know, instead of looking at it and saying, well, you know, I don't think any of us are going to be fuller. You know, the guy was, you know, he's defining things. He's defining universe here. So the concept of universe. And to me, I read it and I just I accept it. And then in accepting it, I apply it. So how do I apply it? How do I apply the idea of universe? And then it's just a matter of conversation. Like when I look around the world now, if you look at the news, all the news, all the science news is of the new pictures, and of the new pictures of the universe.
Mhm.
And when you start to look at that and you start to see things and you say, how do I apply that to my life? Well, how the hell do you apply that to your life?
Mm.
And a lot of this stuff that we're talking about for Fuller, it's hard to apply to our life. And the conversation needs to be more about life, more about our life and what we're doing and where we're going and how we perceive it inside universe. And it's like, for me now, I find it hard to keep up with you guys. So I just listen. But I think from a too technical point of view, you can read down to the last, you can soak the last little bit out of it, or you can accept there's a lot more to go. I mean, we're never going to understand universe.
Okay.
Well, and see, and I appreciate that. And at the same time, by studying Bucky and getting a different perspective, I then learned something I didn't know before instead of just reinforcing what I thought I knew. Like, for example, here is this hierarchy chart. And Manu pointed it out, universe does not include that which is unknown. And by the way, although he says all, it's embracing and permeating, it's still in a different category of awareness. And I think understanding this chart helps me understand my life better.
Mm.
And I think that kind of detail, I can now add a perspective, and now I can go out and do something different than I did before, instead of just being right about one particular thing or another. So, I agree. And that would be, if I took an exception, that would be it.
Mm.
So, and I don't know, to me, looking at this chart, realizing that universe is separate and that metaphysical and physical were different categories. And yet we talked about how they could be duals, and we talked about these different relationships. I think being able to manipulate those words and see some nuance really helps me add some power in my life.
Yeah, they're all part of the same thing, though. They're all part of a whole.
Sure they are, but a steering wheel is different than a tire. And if I don't realize that, I'm going to squash my hands if I get next to the car, So it just helps me drive my car better when I learn the parts and how they work. That's
Yeah, but sometimes squashing your hands is necessary, Steve.
Well, but if I can avoid it, thank you. I agree. And sometimes I'd like to avoid that if I can.
Yeah, of course, we'd all like to avoid these things, but there's times when, when you break it down, when you break down the hierarchy and say, they're all part, like if you look at it, he numbers them out, but they're all part of the same thing. They're all part of universe. They're all part of what we do. They're all part of our day to day. So you can't exclude them from your thinking. I mean, the main thing is you think about them.
Cool.
It's interesting though. I mean, this conversation is sometimes you do need to fail in trying to figure these things out on your own. I mean, Bucky's words are guidance. Then you can go back and say, oh, that's what he meant by that once, but that's where kind of it takes some time to try and put these things into practical applications, and then you start to see some of the things that, how you start to separate the parts from the whole.
Well, it's there isn't a day goes by when I don't go, oh shit, that's what he means.
Right, right. That's accurate. Yeah.
It's like pick up something and it's like, oh shit.
It's like a daily prayer.
Yeah.
In a way. No, that's a great point.
Okay, any other comments or questions? Let's read.
I have defined universe in such a manner that none may present experimental proof of its inadequacy, for my definition includes both the objective and subjective, i.e. all voluntary experiences, i.e. experiments, as well as all involuntary experiences, i.e. all happenings. My definition embraces both physical and the metaphysical, the latter being all the weightless experiences of thought, which include all the mathematics and the organization of the data regarding all physical experiments, science, both first and last, being metaphysical. Metaphysical includes the mind extracted, refiningly concentrated, and consciously formulated anti-entropic generalizations in a hierarchy of progressively contracting degree, which most economically describe the workings of the metaphysical subdivision of the universe. My definition of universe inherently includes all the ponderable, i.e. weighable, instrumentally detectable, associative and dissociative, material and radiational, energy behaviors of the physical subdivision of universe.
Comments or questions?
That's pretty clear.
Yeah.
And now he talks about a physical subdivision of universe. So cool. Okay. Bam.
Another clarity here.
What's
We've
that?
always talked
Please.
about, in the first paragraph there, about events and happenings. And I hope that is clear now. That events voluntary experiences, happenings are involuntary experiences.
Yeah, they just happen.
Yeah.
Cool.
That means that, so does that, I guess it gets to some degree of spontaneous order that exists, right? Happenings. Am I correct in assuming something like that?
No, I just wanted us to have some clarity and then proceed forth.
Well, to me, the voluntary experience is the experiment. In other words, this is where I start claiming accountability. I'm saying, okay, I create this experience. And then if I'm not willing to voluntarily create the experience, it's just a happening.
Yeah, but that
Yeah.
voluntary is an event.
They're all events, aren't they? Voluntary experiences are events, and so are involuntary experiences. Right? And if it is an experiment, then I'm a player and I'm partisan to it. And if it's involuntary, then I'm probably a victim.
No, I just wanted to
Or an
have an
innocent
expressional
bystander.
thing. That event, I'm objective. Happening, I'm subjective.
Mm-hmm.
That's all. I mean, it is practical to me and can progress with.
Wait a minute, you're saying a happening is subjective?
Yeah, I'm the subject of.
Okay,
I'm a victim.
I see.
I'm in the worst
I
possible.
don't know what you mean by victim state, because happenings are all around us.
That's
It's
right.
all
And so,
happening.
unless I'm conscious of what's going on and realize, which I'm not, I'd have to be superhuman to do that.
Yeah,
But
there's a lot more happenings than there are experiments.
I totally agree with that.
Mhm.
So it's like, it's all happening around us. And as it happens around us, it's like, how does it feed into what we're doing on a daily basis?
And then there's this concept of mindfulness, where I just come out of my own little universe and I start becoming mindful. And the more mindful I become, the more I become aware of these happenings. And they're not just, and they become, I can treat that happening as an experiment. Where if I'm not willing to expand my mindfulness about it, then it'll just be a happening over there and a happening over there until I start to own the experience and say, geez, that wreck happened in my on my block. What can I do about that? And now I'm more aware. And now I start doing experiments and I say, gee, I'm going to put a stoplight in on that street. And now the traffic is flowing and there are fewer happenings because I became aware and I started doing experiments and I started becoming a person instead of an animal. There's
Would you say
stuff.
there are different happenings, though, Steve? I mean, you put a stoplight in doesn't mean it stops. It means there's something different happens.
Well, if he says happenings are involuntary, I think that's the context,
Mhm.
where experiments are voluntary. And so the idea of putting in a stoplight, I start creating, people can choose to run the red light, or they can voluntarily stop for that light, and we stop crazy happenings going on. Just some thought. So this idea of mindfulness is that I can expand, and things that I thought were involuntary before, I realized that until I close my window, the mosquitoes are going to come through the freaking door. I mean, Bucky, we read a couple of weeks ago that Bucky talked about people don't understand that the fly is moving towards the light to the window. If I want the fly out, I open the window and the fly flies out. And so
That is an experiment. That is you, Steve, doing an experiment.
that's what I'm saying.
Okay. But there's what all Kelly's saying, that there are happenings all the time. And to be operational, we have this idea that if you can distinguish, if you can define in a way that is operationally applicable, it is easier for everybody to understand what it means.
And that comes through awareness. And as I expand my awareness, I stop being subjective and I start being more objective about my situation.
Yeah, but in terms of description, Becky says all voluntary. We know what voluntary is, and all involuntary. So we know that distinction, and then we go ahead with, we can spend the day on it. You wouldn't change that.
Okay. I think awareness can change it. Let's go to any other comments or questions. Okay, let's go to concept number 2.
Concept 2, humanity. Human function in universe, entropy and anti-entropy, is the human an accidental theater goer who happened in who happened in on the play of life, to like it or not? Or does humanity perform an essential function in universe? We find the latter to be true. The discovery develops as follows.
Okay,
By
please.
Okay.
He's saying exactly what I just said. Is a human being just an accidental theater goer who happened to be in this play and all these happenings are happening? Or can I actually participate in that? And that's what we find. The latter is true. I can actually perform essential functions in the universe. And here's how we do it. The discovery develops as follows. To me, that's exactly what I was saying in on the previous paragraph. And if I didn't communicate that, I apologize. Any other comments or questions?
We read.
Let's continue to read.
Mhm.
By entropy, I refer to the experimentally demonstrated physical behaviors covered by the second law of thermodynamics and the latter disclosure of the omni-accelerating acceleration of the diffusion of physical energy patternings of universe. spoken of by the mathematical physicists by the law of increase of the random element, which may also be called the law of the expanding universe. As the stars are all in complex motions, the radiations given off by them are ever more diffusely dispatched. By
In-
go ahead.
Okay, we can continue to read if you want to. Go ahead.
Well, I think we should actually come maybe unpack this a little bit. What was it? Omni-accelerating diffusion, physical energy. I had a question in there and I'm trying to, the law of increase of the random element. Does anybody?
That's entropy. In
Okay,
other words, things seem to become more and more random as
okay,
as
okay.
the
All
universe
right. So that's
unfolds,
okay. Okay. That makes
as
sense.
it based on the law of the expanding universe.
Okay.
And you know, I'm the big guy. I really believe in expanding universe. That the universe may be expanding this way, but we are learning to calibrate in smaller and smaller increments, which means not only is the universe expanding because we're seeing more all the time, like for example with the James Webb Telescope, that's showing an expanding universe, but we're measuring in smaller and smaller increments, so we're actually inspanding while we're expanding.
Steve, I think that what he's saying there is quite simple, is that, you know, the physical and the accelerating and the expansion is just a phase of the universe. That's all he's saying. And that as it expands, that is increasing in volume, there's a lot in terms of the patterns of interaction that are happening. And that's what gives the impression of entropy, of disorder. So it's a semblance of, but just a phase. So what is implied there is that there will be a contraction phase.
That's debatable. Because
So that's what he's saying.
The expansion and contraction is actually happening simultaneously, and we're just not observing it. So, and I think Roger Penrose would agree with me. But you know, the old Stephen Hawking used to say there's this expanding universe and it's going to collapse. And now a lot of physicists are saying, hey, you know, it doesn't necessarily have to work that way. And so I think that's debatable.
I think that you are falling in the trap of believing that the universe that we know, that you know, is that universe. It's changing all the time.
That's my point.
Yeah, it is changing all the time. Okay, but this is not, I think we should continue on the next paragraph.
Yeah, let's do it. Go ahead, Joe.
By anti-entropy, I refer to the omni-accelerating acceleration of the clarifying, differentiated, and intercommunicated experience derived pattern cognitions of human mind, which progressively disclose the orderly complex of omni-interactive pure weightlessness or weightless and apparently eternal principles governing the intellectual design and operation of the seemingly and suggestively only infinitely self-regenerative universe.
Cool. That whole paragraph is one sentence.
Pattern cognitions.
I think that could have been
pattern. That's what I thought. I wanted to say.
Yeah. Maybe there's an end that goes there. I agree.
Yeah, I was like,
no, there should be an end. There should
yeah, that's I was like pattern. I didn't know. Like anyway, I just didn't know what that.
Yeah, my
We've
apologies.
learned from a long time that our recognition, our knowledge is only forms, is patterns. Right? That's why it's always cycles. It comes, you know, we cannot recognize anything that is a digit. We're always recognizing patterns. That is an organization of things happening in a way that we can identify, we can label, we can do whatever we want to call it.
And I think he's referring to, I mean, a good example of this would be Ptolemy, Copernicus, and Galileo.
Right.
Ptolemy saw a pattern, Copernicus saw a different pattern, and Galileo saw a different pattern. And now with James Webb, we're seeing a different pattern. And those are all anti-entropic.
I think I feel that I think was it last week that before we went into the detail, right? I think Bucky said something about or was it Steve said that the world is by nature entropic, and human beings are by nature anti-entropic.
Exactly.
Yes. Yeah. So I think that's what it's referring to here. And I do see it a lot because children, they function in entropy a lot of the time, and so what people want to do, or generally adults want to do, is to make them anti-entropic all the time. So, and that's where that disconnect is happening between the adults who are making decisions on the children versus the nature of children. And that's why they're miserable. They literally the entire time that they are in school amongst adults, they cannot be themselves, right? So this was one of the things that we discovered very, very early on, and that by nature, the kids are random, they love fun, they want to do things, they want to explore and so on. So in the end, we realized over the years, what we did was actually to harness the nature of the children and the energy that they have. They're so high energy, and they just want to move around. We just harnessed it and we redirected their whole focus, right? So, but they're still random, they are still high energy, they are still interacting with everybody. We just channeled it differently. So this was one of the things that we have been doing. I mean, since we're talking about applying to life, right? And the biggest issue is education is just so anti-entropic. It's not funny. I'm done.
Okay, cool.
I
Go ahead.
and-
Manu.
Yes.
Okay, so I just put in the chat book. I put it early on when Steve talked about creativity. What I took as I just read in the stuff Wikipedia what creativity is: the use of imagination or original idea to create something. That is the recombining, the identification of elements and recombining them to make something. There's nothing that you create that didn't exist already.
Yep.
Everything is already there. So anti-entropy is that use of what is already there to make something that is, let's just put it, useful to you. Either because in case of children, it's joy or the sensation or satisfaction of the exploratory kind of urge. For other, so that's the way I see it. Anti-entropy and entropy is always in play.
It's in play. Yep, correct.
There's
The only difference is that what you call the label anti-entropy is now, you are actually becoming teleological in terms of using the things to create something consciously.
Yep.
Okay.
But teleology assumes that we're creating something based on an outcome, that we're deriving it based on the outcome.
Yes.
One of the things that I think is neat here is these are experience-derived pattern cognitions of the human mind. And these are seemingly and suggestive only because universe is infinitely self-generative.
Yeah.
So in other words, first we settle on the anti-entropic result of looking at the stars was Ptolemy. And then we gained a little bit more awareness about what was going on, and we didn't want to get our hands squished by the tires in the car. We realized there's tires and steering wheel, and we moved to the Copernican theory of the universe. Now we have a geocentric universe, or a solocentric universe instead of a geocentric universe. And then we gather our awareness and we see a different pattern now. But anything we see is suggestive only. And it's only apparent in the given moment because we have an infinitely self-regenerative universe and our ability to experience it is limited. That's what I'm seeing on this. Any other comments or questions?
But we use it to do something that works.
Right,
Yeah.
for now.
We
now.
launch satellites into orbit.
Yeah, but we wouldn't
We
be
build
launching
rockets.
we wouldn't be launching satellites into orbit if we
didn't recognize the patterns.
if we didn't see the pattern.
Yes, we would not
We were
recognize the
stuck with-
pattern and we didn't understand the laws. We
Right.
wouldn't. Okay.
Exactly. So we have to realize that Ptolemy's plan was at the time seemed pretty cool, but it really suggested a universe. Now we couldn't be putting satellites if we were stuck with Ptolemy. We had to expand our awareness. We had to recognize a new pattern, and we had to move ahead.
And yes, I do get this. Both must exist and both need to be there,
Yeah.
and no issues with that. Yes, it's just that when human beings or human beings, when we try to just go in one direction and not acknowledge entropy, yeah. So that's where I'm coming from. It's true.
Yeah.
You need both. All right.
There's entropy, there's syntropy, and then there's anti-entropy, which we read last week or the week before. Anti-entropy is not sustainable.
Right.
Yep.
Good. Because the universe is infinitely self-regenerative and it's just going to constantly change, and we're going to see more and more all the time. Okay, I'm trying to get to the next page without blowing my mind. There we go. Go ahead, Joe, we're ready.
We may call this metaphysical phenomenon, which continually simplifies and contracts the generalized description of principles apparently operative in all special case experiences. The law of decreasing confusion, or the law of intellectual conservation, or the law of the contracting universe, or the law of diminishing chaos, or the law of progressive order, or the law of contractively orderly generalizations. Do you want me to keep going? Or do you want to?
That's anti-entropy.
What is
We may
yes.
call anti-entropy this
Yeah.
metaphysical phenomenon, which
Yeah. This metaphysical phenomenon is anti-entropicism. And we may call this anti-entropicism metaphysical phenomenon, which continually simplifies and contracts the generalized
description of principles. Okay.
apparently operating.
and you understand that anti-entropic is always local. The application of it. I've
Yeah,
made this comment many times that it manifests locally.
Okay, continuing to read. Any comments or questions? Okay, go for
I
it.
do want to come to at some point because I was thinking about that today, actually.
What's that?
How everything is manifested locally.
What's your comment or question?
I was thinking about that in terms of, we were talking about of even just things like electric cars and things along those lines, or self-driving cars and autonomous vehicles, and how that changes are going to have to happen. Those types of changes will have to happen on a local level. It can't happen on a kind of a national level. And I was just thinking about how that actually may work into this. That's all. I
I
was
think
thinking.
that's a good comment and a good question. And I think later on, we're going to see more and more of that about, he talks about individual accountability and responsibility for any change that's going on. And that the
Let me ask
change,
you a question, Joe. Do you think that electrical car is going to make any change to the sun or to even Mars?
To the sun?
Yeah,
No,
so it's
not
local.
to.
It's local.
So it's local on here. And I was just, okay, all right, that makes sense. All right, so it's
Okay.
local to the universe here. But I was even just thinking in the sense of how a problem gets solved locally. You
By
know,
contracting those general laws
right,
to see that
right,
to construct something where all of them come to play in a way, in an anti-entropic way, in a way that is anti the apparent disorder of the general universe.
so it's anti-entropic to the earth.
well,
Whatever local here means contracting, that's all it means. That's
yeah,
why it's explained here.
except,
Yeah,
except every event on this planet starts locally. I mean, you know, Elon Musk locally in California built an electric car and it's spreading, right? Einstein locally came up with his theory of relativity and it's spread, right? So any significant anti-entropic pattern is always local.
no,
Because
but Elon Musk thing is not a generalized law. It's an application.
Right.
Every application is always local. For Einstein thing is it is metaphysical. It's from there. It's general. It's way less idea. You know, Elon Musk thing it has weight. Electric cars or application, those are applications. And is as valid as Ford was in his time.
cool.
I suggest we continue.
Sure.
Really?
Radiation is physical, entropic, incoherent, propelling, dissociative, pushing. The logical questions arise. Is gravity metaphysical, anti-entropic, coherent, intensive? Are gravity and order rested and collected intellectually from chaos? Is intellect a priori to both physical and metaphysical universe? Is the tensional integrity of universe exclusively and intellectually integrity phenomenon and a consequence of only of intellectual exploration and measurements?
He's asking some good questions. I wish I understood the other half of the words that I don't understand.
Yeah, right.
Okay.
Do we want
Any
to?
comments or questions? Let's continue to read. By the way, Kelly made a comment a few minutes ago that he had to go now. He announced he was going to leave early and just announced that he had to leave. So let's continue.
While gravity affects, whoops, what happened?
Sorry,
there?
I jumped a little fast. Sorry.
Yeah. Okay, so while gravity's effects are physically measurable, the concept of gravity is in itself unweighable. Likewise, the effects of electromagnetism are physically weighable. The physicists have ruled intellectually that all that is imponderable is metaphysical. Clearly, it is seen that the metaphysical is to the physical as antimatter is to matter, i.e., as the electron is to the position.
To the positron.
Positron, sorry.
Yeah. I'll tell you, these are hard words to read, Joe.
Yeah.
I'm glad it's you and not me.
Yeah.
You know, because
I'm about to go pick up John Butler from his trip.
whatever he's doing, right?
Yeah.
Any comments or questions on that one?
I just suggest that we continue
Sure.
because it will clarify.
Metaphysics and physics are thus seen to confusion, to conserve progressively the self-generation of non-simultaneously and overlapping evolving universe. Man's function in universe is metaphysical and anti-entropic. He is essential to the conservation of universe, which is in itself an intellectual conception. In 1951, I published my conclusion that man is the anti-entropy of the universe. Norbert Wiener published the same statement at the same time. Both of us arrived at our conclusions by different routes and without knowledge of the other's discovery. I will now expand on the human's anti-entropic functioning.
Any comments or questions before we go ahead with the expansion?
Man is the local mechanic to the universe car. Do you understand what I mean?
Well-
Perhaps you can expand on that.
Well, the mechanic, I mean the car, when you have a brand new car, the car runs, right?
Right.
Then you only uses, is running, cycle, and then start kind of, how would I call it? They start being small hitches.
Right.
You have to go to your mechanic, or unless you are a mechanic yourself, and fix the part that is causing the whole not to work properly or expected. So the function of man is local anti-entropic. You say man's function universe is metaphysical and anti-entropic. It is essential to the conservation of universe, which is in itself an intellectual conception.
I think that's a profound statement right there.
Yep.
I am essential to the conservation of universe, which the universe itself is an intellectual concept.
Yes.
See, and that goes back to that hierarchy chart down here where here's universe, and here are all these other things that are going on.
Here's me.
Cosmic integrity, synergy, nature, entropy, syntropy, right? All that's
See.
going on. Yeah.
Hey, just keep it there. Just keep the hierarchy there.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
That is
Universe, all
that's
that is known, all that the mechanic knows,
Right on.
all that the mechanic knows.
And he reemphasizes all known experiences.
Yes.
Known experience.
Well, how does the mechanic repair your car? I just want to kind of use some metaphor, physical metaphor for us to anchor this. It seems to Bucky that our function in the universe is not that of just a theater goer, that is somebody that's passive, just watching and feeling as there are actors there. We are actor, local, to ensure the local integrity of the overlapping and non-simultaneous universe that is always in motion, that is always changing.
Wow.
Okay.
I'm just actually amazed how you put these into words.
Yeah.
But it's starting, you can see the connections between those two.
Okay. We're ready to continue with in the
You
above?
understand that when you read what we call the self-discipline, Joe, that's why I wanted us to read the self-discipline.
Oh,
But
We'll get there.
yeah, yes.
In the above statements, I am giving precise meaning to the word metaphysics. By metaphysical, I mean no more nor less than is implicit in my definition of universe. Since magic has never been experimentally demonstrated, my use of the word metaphysics does not contain overtones of magic or mysticism.
Exactly.
Now, and this is like, here's metaphysical and physical down here, and here's universe up here. Here's unknown here. Here's nature here, which has known and unknown, it seems. Synergy has known and unknown. You know, this is just really interesting to me.
So mysticism would be in the unknown, right?
Well, I
No,
think what he's saying
mysticism is
there's
not
no-
in his realm. Let's be clear.
That's right.
Mysticism is not demonstrable. It's
Yeah.
not repeatable.
Right.
And
That's not what
metaphysics
he's
is
talking
not
about.
magic. Metaphysics is not magic, and it's not mysticism. It's real.
Okay.
Right. Well, that makes sense to me. Yeah, so I just thought, how's he accounting for it in that chart? And
But it goes back. If you look at the chart, that chart is not linear. And that's the confusion that we always go in. It is dualities of dualities,
okay.
right?
And as he says here, they are embracing and permeating. They
Yeah.
permeate each
So
other.
when you look at synergy and nature, they are in duality. They are always interacting.
Okay.
Unknown and universe are always doing that.
They permeate each other and they embrace each other.
Yes.
Okay,
That makes sense.
cool.
I mean, you are, Joe, how do you know that you are in a cell?
How do I know that I'm
In a cell.
in a cell?
Yeah.
In a
It's
cell,
only because your mind imagine outside of a cell.
a
Oh,
cell-
yeah. Okay.
So you be in the cell, and the metaphysical of imagining the outside of a cell coexist,
That makes sense. Yes.
right? So that's the play that we having all the time.
The self and other. Yes, absolutely. The dualities
Yeah.
is, yeah.
the
And
known.
because I'm in one cell here, and Anne is another cell, and you are another cell, we have experiences that overlap. And if you could measure them, there will be at different angles of the same reality of a prison. I'm in prison, you in prison, Anne is in prison, Steve is in prison. That's our universe, it's our prison. And my experience of that prison overlapped with Steve's without overlapping 180 degrees or 360 degrees. So it's like the interaction and the experience, it's infinitely divisible.
Divisible. Yeah.
Yes, in many, many ways, because it's always recombining. Right?
That's right.
It's like you take grains, let's just take rice and wheat that you can look at different, and you put them in a sphere and you start shaking them. How many patterns can you have? Even though you could count the grains of rice and the grains of wheat that you have in your stuff. It's infinite, isn't it?
Yes.
It is infinite because
Yes.
it's not finite. It's not finite. You can shake it. Every time that you shake, a grain will be different from another, in a certain
Even
way.
its experience would be different, even if it were the
Yes.
same.
Yes.
Yes. Right.
That's the metaphor here.
That makes sense.
So you know rice, but you don't know wheat, for example.
Right.
No, that's not even the thing. No, that's not what I say is not right. But let's just say that it is universe that we know. The combinations, the anti-entropic or the patterns are finite also, and there are patterns, but the number of patterns is infinite. The number of combinations is infinite. Okay.
Okay. I mean, part of this is just use of words, because I keep echoing in my head right now is Carl Sagan saying that universe is finite. The universe, this is what Carl Sagan said. The universe is finite and unbounded. That's interesting.
Yes. Because it's changing all the time with the experiences that we back or those that we debug. That is an idea that we have that we thought was true, and then it's proven not to be true. I can't hear you, Steve.
We're ready to read if you guys want to read some more.
Okay, yeah.
Why universe is at present an unanswerable inquiry into the mystical. Though mystical sounds like a contraction of metaphysical, they are not the same. For this reason, I consider all the time spent in speculation regarding the inherently unanswerable to be inherently profitless and a squandering of the opportunity to answer those questions which are answerable by man. It is, however, experienced by us that the unanswerable provoke a sensation in us to which we allude only intuitively as mysterious. You gotta have your breath ready when you're reading these paragraphs.
But it's quite simple. And getting back to the stoicism or to whatever, there are things that you have to accept, given.
Yes, yes.
But if you know that you have to accept it and you don't accept it, that is
Okay,
the
I'm
question
back.
all the time, it's going to be fruitless. You're going to be squandering time because you all know that your time is finite. How do I use it?
Right.
Okay.
That's a really good example.
Okay, ready for the next page?
Sure. By the same reasoning, I discredit all the speculations which suggest or persuade the concept of a beginning or ending of universe. The most recent statements of the leading scientists hold that the concept of original chaos is untenable because the physical composition of universe may not be reduced to less than the orderly intertransformatively of the neutron and the proton and their respective weak effect leftness and rightness adjuncts the electron, positron, neutron, or neutrino,
Yeah.
forgive me, an antineutrino. The positive and negative counterparts, including both their negative as well as positive weights, ergo, the average of all weight of all physical phenomena is zero.
Wow.
Exactly.
Makes, I mean,
Is that worth breaking down?
it's always worth breaking down, but
Do we want to?
yeah, it's
No, but to me, it's quite simple.
well, I could please make it simple.
Okay. By the time that you are busy marking the left are changed to the right. Let me repeat this. By the time I'm busy labeling left are changed to the right because it's in perpetual motion.
That makes sense.
It's all, yes.
That makes sense. But
And me, in order for me to label anything, I need to take a pause I need to jump off the flow. That is called my lag. And then observe to identify before I can use, therefore, before I can label.
To me,
In other words,
oh,
there
okay.
is a general principle of duality that always exists. I can't talk of one without talking of the other.
That's
If I talk at one and talk at other, at the same time, the average is zero. That's why zero means also infinite. The two are the cipher, doesn't mean 0, 0. It means 0 in terms of contain for the physical phase or for what we conceive it. But the symbol of it also means infinite. Finite and infinite. Finite and infinitely intertransformable.
And to me, his opening sentence makes it really simple. This is the summary of what he's saying, that there is no beginning and there is no end.
Yeah.
Because
Operationally, you know, but that you have to understand that in that the question of the beginning and the end, in terms of your preoccupation as a human being, is futile.
And Roger Penrose is now saying that exact same thing. He said
So
there was no Big Bang beginning. Roger Penrose
but-
is saying that right now.
no, I think what he sees is that it is in the why we are here. In the why we're here is already there with you. Why you're in there is to be locally anti-entropic. And pondering about how it started or how we end doesn't help that thing.
And to me, he goes even further and says, I discredit all the speculation about a beginning or an ending of the universe.
Yes.
Mhm.
And that's what Roger Penrose is saying that right now. Roger Penrose has math that shows that there is no expansion and collapse. Everything is expanding and collapsing simultaneously. And that event horizon occurs at some point in the expansion, which automatically begins a new universe. That resolves the question of how does information go from one universe to the next universe? How was there any information in the Big Bang that resulted in what we have now? And Roger Penrose is saying this exact thing.
Yeah,
You
I
see
noticed
here.
some. Yep. Sorry.
Yeah, what is in italic here? It says the average of all weight of all physical phenomena is 0. When there is a phenomena, there's always an anti-phenomena. Action, reaction.
Yeah. Or
Okay.
positive and
Yep.
negative, positive and negative.
Yes.
Go ahead, Anne.
Yeah. This is something I noticed, which is really interesting. Because right now we're in concept number 2, humanity, but there's so much about the universe in relation to humanity, and because I realized that this second concept is very, very long, right? And the concept for number 1, universe, was really short, but then there's so much of the universe in humanity. So yeah, just
Well,
trying to make some sense about that.
This is not this is to be expected, because in this hierarchy of
Yeah.
chart, the universe
Correct.
is all that is known, all known experience. And so he's taught universe is experienced, and outside of universe is unknown. There is
Right.
something different. So
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. You've nailed it, Anne, right there.
Thank you.
Yeah. Want to continue, Joe?
Sure. This is to say that the universe, both physical and metaphysical, is resolvable into a set of principles which are ever more accurately, but never exactly, described by the scientists' weightless intellectual generalizations. And generalized principles, which are weightless cognitions of intellect, have no inherent beginning or ending. Nothing in human experience has ever suggested the beginning or ending of a generalized principle. Ergo, the beginning of universal concepts together with all axioms, are experimental or unproven and only superficially obvious fictions. Before the measurements of the speed of radiations, all phenomena seemed erroneously to visually instant. This gave rise to the superstitiously invented legend of a genie or god creating an instant universe. A physicist said to me a few days ago, "I have become bored with the nonsense concept of infinity, with one end closed by a beginning and the other end open to infinity."
That's cool.
That is interesting.
Yes.
I mean, the fact is, before we understood the speed of light, everybody thought everything happened all at once, that everything was instantaneous. But now we realize that we're seeing stars that the light was 14 billion years ago. We have no idea if those stars are actually still there. And chances are, based on the expanding universe, they probably aren't there anymore. In fact, now they're talking about the cool thing about the James Webb Telescope is it does infrared, so it's actually able to measure that redshift.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Those photos were pretty amazing.
Yeah.
Continue, Joe.
Universe by definition and its derivative concepts are synergetic. Synergy, as you know, means unique behaviors of whole systems unpredicted by any behaviors of their component functions taken separately. Some of ancient Greece natural philosophers are geometers took effective advantage of synergy, that they recognized that the sum of the angles of a plane triangle is always 180 degrees, or exactly 1/2 of cyclic unity, with unity taken as 360. Ergo, unity equals 2 triangles. I assume in 1917 that unity is plural at a minimum 2. That's a very important sense.
Yeah. Let's pause just for a minute.
One,
Go ahead.
there was something I wanted to talk about there.
Well, I can talk while you're
please.
finding it. Okay, this is really important to me. Synergy, as you know, means unique behaviors of whole systems unpredicted by any behaviors of their component functions taken separately. Now, we've talked about this over and over, and it seems obvious, but if I have a nut in a bolt, every function of that nut, I can dissect that, and I can make a list of everything that nut does. And then I can make a list of everything a bolt does. But when I put those two together and I have a nut and a bolt together, suddenly there's a whole nother list of things those things do together that did not exist prior to them being together.
Exactly.
And that is what he's talking about here, is this synergetic thing. And he complains earlier in this book that science takes a thing out of they take a cat out of the yard and put it in a box and study it. That is not a cat. A cat in a box is not a cat. And too many times we do that. And I think in schools they do that.
Yes.
You know?
Okay.
And if I cut the leg off of a frog and I say this is a leg, it doesn't do anything. The leg only functions when it's on the frog.
Right.
Yes.
And so much of school and so much of science is, let's look at this leg and see what it does. And until I understand that the leg is part of the frog, I'm going to miss the whole thing about the leg.
Yep.
So good. Other comments, other questions?
Steve, spot on. Absolutely.
Yeah. But I'm still leaves me with a conundrum of this paragraph that Joe just read. I mean, explain to me how he gets two triangles. Oh, I see. 180
Yeah,
degrees.
180 and 180, and that's we've been down that was one of the best materials that you put together in showing some of those
Yeah, coming to the
graphically.
720 degrees in the 14.
Coming to 40 to 720, and yeah, I mean we went through that on a number of different levels. So that
It's
was
just that cyclic unity here is still talking about
duality.
the plane, two-dimensional.
Yeah, it's
You
two-dimensional.
haven't gotten to a tetrahedron yet. Okay, that's fine. You just continue.
And do you get this 180 degrees on a plane? Because I think I can put together a quick graphic and show you exactly what it's talking about. Would you like to see that? And there might be people looking at the recording who might be interested in seeing that. So let me
I
just,
suggest, Steve, I suggest that you send that after, please.
okay,
Yeah, just continue. You know, it's,
go ahead, Joe.
The stable structural behavior of a whole triangle, which consists of three edges and three individually and independently unstable angles, or a total of 6 components, is not predicted by any one or two of its angles, or edges taken by themselves. The 6 edges of the two triangles can and frequently do associate with one another. I'm sorry. One as left helix and the other as a right helix, to form a 6-edged tetrahedron, which, having 4 triangular faces, gives synergetic demonstration of all 4 triangles occurring as the result of associating only 2 triangles. Incidentally, the right and left helixes formed of the 2 triangles' respective sets of 3 edges each constitute the vectoral modeling in conceptual array of the positive and negative half spins of or half quanta corresponding respectively to the proton set and the neutron set, consisting of neutron, positron, and neutrino on the left hand, and the proton, electron, and anti-neutrino on the right hand. Together, these 6 make one quantum unit, which is identified as the tetrahedron.
Okay, that's a beautiful thing.
do you understand that? Simple, we've done this so many times. I'm doing
Yeah.
this. Let me just show something quickly. Huh? I'm sure Steve has it, so I'm just going to use the magnet for it. Let me do 4.
Do you guys all see mono big on the screen, or are you seeing gallery view?
Gallery view.
Okay, you can actually,
Yeah, I'll switch them to
Yeah.
speaker view.
if you guys want to go to the upper right-hand corner of Mono's picture, there are 3 dots. Left click on those 3 dots and down will come a menu and you can say pin, and then Mono will be big on the screen. If you're watching the recording, I don't know what's happening to you.
Well, you can record it like that.
I'm actually, Joe, I think the menu is I can either, okay, we'll talk about
Are we
it.
there?
Yeah,
Can you see me?
yes, totally.
Okay. You see this green and this or this yellow and this red, right?
Right.
This is a plane. Okay. This is a plane here. This book is a plane. So the association, the first association is just on the plane like this, right?
Yes.
That is the 2 triangle that is talking about. But when it's talking about helix, is that association has come like this. You get that?
Yes. Yes.
So it's no more on the plane
He's starting to talk about a necklace.
or something of sort. So it goes like that, and it associates. The first association is like this. You see, you have this, and it does this, right? You can have that. That is one association in a different. You see that it's still turning many ways, right?
Yes.
Okay. Now take the green now, and you put onto it. You have another one like this, right?
Yes.
That's 3. And you take any 4. Let me take a different color. I hope I have. Blue, yes. I take blue. Blue. And associate this way. This is a triangle blue. There it is. There's another triangle. I can put it anywhere. Let me just try to put it here, right? I knock out one of these and I put it like that. So I have 4 triangles. Now let's explore how they can close to make a finite. Anything, it can be like this, like that, and like that.
Wow. That's a jitterbug in a way.
Yeah,
It is.
wherever. That is the way the triangles, which is on the plane, was the irreducible set, the small, the minimum structure
Of 2.
or minimum shape. Now they can combine to make something that is a unit of energy.
That's right.
Because in any direction of this, there is a boundary.
And you have
But
6.
there's a boundary. There is a boundary anyway, right? In a 2-dimensional.
There are many
You know, a
boundaries.
unit means that it is finite, you can count it. In
Yeah.
any direction of this, there's a boundary, you see it. Huh?
Yes.
And there are 6 edges. Now, those happen to be
Yes.
double edges. They happen to be double
Right,
edges.
yes.
They work together as 6 different edges.
Yes. You can see that they are double there. You know, I didn't knock out the spheres, but that's the way it is. Okay?
Yes.
Got it?
In a nutshell, in a nutshell, that's what that paragraph means.
Wow. That was awesome, Manu.
And that's where he talks about, let me see, where did he talk about the 6 edges?
Yeah. The stable, it started with a triangle, the stable structure of a triangle, and he goes to the bottom where he talk, incidentally, the right and left ellipses. We saw the ellipses when it come, now it's lifting from the plane to form an angle. And then it comes to now to form a stable structure. This is a stable structure. I'm pressing there, is a structure.
Well, and Manu, you went to there, and I really think that it would be nice to, if I just went ahead and threw my little thing in here, because there's another aspect that seems a little bit difficult to grasp, and that's this idea of the relationship between half of a plane and the 2 triangles. And I would just like to throw that down here really quickly. So, and what I'm going to do is grab this guy right here. And this is what he says is this. He takes this guy right here, and right there we have a plane. Right there is 180 degrees. This is 180 degrees on a plane.
Right.
And we have another 180 degrees up here to make 360. By coincidence, a triangle is also 180 degrees. And we want to say that this is different than this. And what Bucky's saying is they aren't different because
Right.
they interrelate. My human brain wants to say this guy is different than this guy. But the sum of all the angles on this plane right here is equal to 180 degrees, which is also that triangle.
Which goes back to,
Go
okay.
ahead. No, go ahead.
No, what was it? The donut that morphed into a circle, the cup. morphed into a circle. It's kind
Yeah,
of
the
the same concept.
topology, the topology.
The topology is the same.
Right. So there's 180 degrees there on top. There's 180 degrees below. That 180 degrees is this triangle. And that's why Manu took the two triangles and stuck them together in some fashion, you know, touching this point to that point. And so now if we have, I mean, I'll duplicate this. There we go.
Nice.
Now we have the same thing going on right there. And it's all about topology, not about shape.
Hmm.
It's not about topography, it's about topology.
Hmm.
So the sum of the angles are exactly the same. And when we build,
By the way, that is the definition of a triangle. The triangle is a graph by which, a closed graph by which the sum of the angles is 180 degrees. That's the definition.
and what Mono did here is he took the, whoops. He had green. That's supposed to be green. Ooh, I got to grab that and say, okay, I got stuff in the way here. Whoops. Okay. So now we got, oh shoot, I did that wrong. That should have been the green outline. And then this would be the yellow outline right here. There we go. And so, I think that'll, there we go. And then I can go here and make this nothing. All right, great. That's what Mono did, was he took these four triangles and he stuck them together and made a tetrahedron. We have 360 degrees in these two triangles, 360 degrees in these two triangles. Thus we have 720 degrees. And if I take these two elements right here and I hook them together, and then I take this guy and I lay it down, let's see, let's hope it'll lay down for me. Yep, it does, it lays down. Then, and let me get rid of this guy here. Whoops. I have those grouped together. Then I take these guys here, if I double it and I twist it in some fashion here, and I change this one to yellow, I have to, let me ungroup them. I got to ungroup them in order to do that.
But Steve, can we, because we did this all the time, you know, we spend so much time on this stuff.
Yeah, I know,
I
but
wanted to demonstrate a little bit. I feel I suggest that we just finish the text, at least that paragraph.
well,
and
yeah,
then we do- Yeah.
I'm happy to do that. And at the same time, you know, I don't like to race over this because this took forever for me to get. And, you know, if this helps anybody watching this video, then we're in good shape. So there we go. There's 360 degrees going around the top and the bottom. And here's
Right.
360 degrees going around the sides. That makes a total of 720 degrees. Whammo. This picture here and this picture here are exactly the same.
So 720 degrees is the unit of energy. Right? Is a tetrahedron, is the unit of energy. That's another definition of a tetrahedron.
Right.
Okay.
Good. So I hope that
Yep.
helps.
Yep,
720
that helps.
degrees, 720 degrees.
Yep,
Cool.
that helps.
Good. And thank you for telling me that because I feel terrible hijacking the conversation. All right. And it's about time for us to go. So let's go ahead and finish tonight. We've done some good, I think we've covered some good ground. And I think those who watch this recording, it's gonna, some of this 720 degrees stuff is gonna make some big sense. So
Yeah.
Joe, how you feeling and what are you taking away besides the incomprehensible readingness of Bucky? You're my hero tonight, Joe. I
Yeah,
want you to
no,
know.
I mean, it was funny. It was like sometimes it would click with me and sometimes it wouldn't. It would be like, but some of those words were, and there were a couple of typos as well. I think there was a random E in there at one point,
Exactly.
and then there was a pattern so it wasn't, so my takeaway is, kind of be patient with it.
Exactly
So,
right. Be patient.
that's exactly the main thing that I'm thinking. I think the illustrations that both that Manu and Steve, you both did were excellent. I think this is gonna be something where I really need to take the time to go back and to really watch this video again, even though we've been through this many times. As far as creating a tetrahedron or just the process of taking Bucky's text and making it real. So that was actually something for me that is one of my major takeaways. I think I have a better understanding of the universe as well, from the definitions that we worked through, and a little bit, it's just more of an intricate stuff. This is the type of material. I'm sorry, I'm not speaking clearly. This is the type of material that the more you go through it, the more you start to say, oh, aha. And I had a couple of aha moments this evening. So these weekly calls are very helpful for me. It's starting to see the geometry of thought, especially our conversation. Manu, your illustration of us being in a cell. How do I know that I'm in a cell? And understanding the other. So I'm very appreciative of that as well. So I'm a little all over the place with this because, well, I think Bucky's words are a little bit all over the place. I think that also seeing him, seeing the, the hierarchy mapped into words also things became a little bit more clear for me as well. So his cosmic hierarchy, having Bucky's cosmic hierarchy and kind of seeing the words themselves. So anyway, those are my takeaways for today. And how do you feel, and what are you taking away from today?
Yeah, thank you, Joe. And thank you to Steve and Manu as well, because my brain doesn't really see math and science on its own. Yeah. So I really appreciate it when during our meetings, our calls, that you're able to make it visual. Right. Okay. So that helps a heck of a lot because I'm a word person, yes, and more on it being very pictorial. So for the longest time, I felt stupid in school. Yeah, until like now, we're actually doing Bucky's book and his science, and a lot of it is actually making sense to me. So I really, really appreciate that a lot. And that's my biggest takeaway for today. All right, thank you very much. And so, Manu, how do you feel, and what is your takeaway?
I feel good. And really, I just feel like, the self-discipline thing will have helped a lot on us here to read it first. Let me take this opportunity to read it. It says, self-disciplines, working assumptions, cautions, encouragements, and restraints of intuitive formulations of spontaneous actions.
Yeah.
My own rule, do not mind if I'm not understood as long as I'm not misunderstood. Do not mind if I'm not understood as long as I'm not misunderstood.
That's right.
And it's a personal self-discipline. In 1927, I gave up forever the general economic dictum of society, i.e. that every individual who wants to survive must earn a living. I substituted, therefore, the finding made in concept one, i.e., the individual anti-entropic responsibility in universe. I sought for the task that needed to be done that no one else was doing or attempting to do, which, if done, will physically and economically advantage society and eliminate pain. Right? And as a consequence, it was necessary for me to discipline my faculties to develop technical and scientific capability to invent the physical innovations and their service industry logistics. This is how understanding and developing a set of practical ways for what you can do in order to achieve a change of the status quo towards what is desired.
Interesting.
And it's very, very powerful. Now, if you read this before, in my opinion, then while reading the text, the other stuff, you understand better the context of how he was talking.
Can I
Right?
respond to that?
Yes, and
You do.
Yeah, but actually that's the point I'm making. Actually, kids are both entropic and anti-entropic at the same time. And you got to develop both, and they got to have both in order for them to function. The problem is that people just disregard the entropic and tell the kids it's wrong to be entropic at the same time. That is our problem. So your description is pure, is spot on, or rather Bucky's description of it, of what discipline or self-discipline is perfect because it just fits right in. And if you do both, you can still get the self-discipline. Yeah.
So you cannot do the self-discipline before having understood the general. That's why Bucky always says, start from the general.
Yeah.
Go to local.
Yep. Okay, got it. Thank you.
Start from the macro before you go to the micro.
Mm.
It's always saying that. So starting from general, in my understanding, means understand what the general rules are. You want to play a game, know the game of play. You don't play your own way before now you know the game, the rules of a game.
Yep.
Okay. So that's my major take from this, is that we have to arrive at the point where we're developing self-discipline in order to be effective in being the mechanics of our local environment. That's what I take away. Otherwise, gratitude and thanks for you all spending time at all hours to be on Discord. Hello, Steve. How do you feel? What do you take away?
Thank you, Manu.
I'll tell you. You know, there's a tendency to say, well, that's too complicated. I'm going to skip that and just get what I can get out of it. But to me, it's such a sacred opportunity to do what I can to look through the window and see what Bucky may have seen the way Bucky saw it. And when I do that is when I'm able to really change my perspective and say, whoa, is this what Bucky saw? Is this what I see? How can I bring myself in line with what Bucky saw? And how does that make my life different? And I got to say that as I've been in this call for at least 18 months, maybe 2 years. I don't know. I'd have to look back and see where I've been on. And, you know, we talked about a 720-degree thing over and over. And it's taken me 2 years of pondering to really understand that all relationships are 720 degrees. Because I'm not only dealing with you, I'm dealing with myself. I'm not only dealing with you and you deal with me with feedback, that's 360, but I'm actually dealing with myself and you're dealing with me. And things are, I want to keep things simple. I want to tell you what to do and say, I'm the boss. But if I do that, things are going to, entropy is going to catch up and it's all going to fall apart. The way I become anti-entropic, the way I stop things from falling apart is I go to the principle of 720 degrees, and that way my tetrahedron sticks together. Because if I don't have all 720 degrees there, that thing's going to fall apart. So with that in mind, and me being the guy here, and pardon me, I'm happy to hand this. Here's the triangles that Manu talked about. Those triangles are now represented here. Here's 180 degrees. Here's 180 degrees. Red is 180. Blue is 180. But I don't have a 3D program, so I can't just twist this up and make it stand up. So I built this thing over here. What I really need to do is put a blue line over here, and I will do that before I pass this out, so that you'll see this is this is this.
Can I say something, Steve?
Yes, please.
Do you see my comment
No, I didn't see your comment. Where's your comment?
in the
Yeah.
chat?
All relationships are actually 1440.
1440. And I actually did a paper on that, and I actually
Yeah,
sent you
because
that
what you are showing there, let's just come to it. That is the principle of duality, right? That is two things always coexisting, right? And then you take a tetrahedron, you move from a triangle to a tetrahedron. One tetrahedron is 720. And you are in your reality, that is the 720, but the other side of it, you have the convex tetrahedron, that is another 720. And the two are together. So the sum of the two is 1440. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
Is your torus.
Yeah. And I actually, Anne, I sent you a paper on this, a little paragraph explaining how the 1440 works in terms of personal relationships. I hope you got that. And if you didn't, that's okay, but I hope you did. And because I have actually figured out the 1440, and I'm very profound with it in terms of personal relationships. So I love the 1440 idea. I love the 720. Right here, we have 720. And I'm going to fix this before I set it off. So there's one more thing I want to point out that I think people are missing. At least I miss it for a long time. There's entropy, and there's the opposite of entropy, which is syntropy. And then there is anti-entropy.
The dual of
Exactly.
Yes.
These two here are the dual.
Yeah.
And there's something in between. It's anti-entropy. And this anti-entropy is the essence of being a human, where
Yeah.
I stop the chaos and I put things together for a little while.
Right.
And it's always local. That is,
It's
you
always
asking the
local.
question, how can I be? What is my role in the universe? The universe is
Exactly.
way bigger than you. What is my role?
And this is why the Roman
That's
Empire,
interesting. Yeah.
and this is why the Roman Empire fell, is because syntropy is going to take, entropy is going to take over. The Roman Empire was built, the US Empire was built syntropically. People got together and said, let's do something. And they created some anti-entropy and said, we're going to create a constitution, we're going to have a country. But entropy will take over because anti-entropy is unsustainable. I must constantly be going back to the 1440. I've got to go back to the 720. I've got to go back to the 360 because the universe is constantly entropic, constantly changing, and my anti-entropy efforts have got to be continually renewed.
Exactly. It's changing.
It's changing all the
Yes.
time.
Your ideal might be, but every time you have to build a new tool to espouse
Absolutely.
your idea, to sustain your ideal.
Exactly. As soon as I'm a teacher and I create a way to teach something, next year something's changed. And if I don't change the way I teach it, my school will become an artifact. And that's what's happened with most schools. Most schools are an artifact of the industrial age, and the industrial age is over.
Yep.
Entropy has overwhelmed it. And your job, and I love this because you're one of the most anti-entropic people I know. And it's so exciting to be with you every week. And everybody in this group is anti-entropic, and I'm just honored to be here. So
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm really thrilled. Manu, thanks for your contributions. Joe,
Yep.
reading that thing is painful, Joe. And
It was. It
yeah,
was.
and I'm going, holy mackerel, wait a minute. What was so and if you want to trade off, I would be glad to like give you a break. So
Oh
that you
no,
can
no,
go-
I actually enjoy it. I
okay,
really,
because I'd be
I
glad
do.
to give you a break and you can
It's a
watch me
practice.
falter on those words.
Yeah, it's a
Can you stop the recording and then I'll give you a tip, Joe? If
Okay.
Steve can stop the recording.
Oh, you want me to pause the recording for a minute?
So much. Oh,
Okay, so I want to say that I think Bucky invented weird ass words on purpose so that people would understand that they don't understand. And if he just said a normal word that everybody said, they would think they understood it. So he on purpose put bogus words out there to break people's trance and get them to be anti-entropic just for
Yeah.
a moment.
Yeah, it's really interesting because we're, I'm reading about dualities, and I felt like I was actually seeing a lot of like Jung in Bucky's kind of work. Like Jung is even more abstract in his own language as well. But yes, if you can explain these words,
Yeah.
I mean, you know it. That's for
Yeah.
sure.
But
I
you'd
mean,
have to explain, you'd have to
it's another
explain the-
language.
Yeah, it is
It is
another language.
read it over and over until you see a pattern.
That's
what
right.
he said. If you try to explain one word separately, you're not going to go very far.
Yeah, all the words interrelate. So his unique word using of this word and his unique wording of this word, they hook together. And now maybe you understand what he's trying to say, right? Because if he just said all the regular words everybody said, they'd say, oh yeah, I get what he's saying. And he's saying, hey, you know a little bit about something, but you don't know what I'm saying, because I'm saying something totally different. Okay.
But himself is not saying that I say from the point of knowledge. He say, I'm exchanging, I'm putting it out there in such a way that it can be criticized and we reach to a common stop. That's why he always tries to put as detailed as possible what he's feeling and what he's wanting to express. It's not from a pontification point of view.
No.
It is from total exchange point of view.
Yeah, and I think it's say, come out of your box. I'm saying something different than you thought I was going to say. So here's a new word, think about it. And that's what we're doing every day. And I love the fact that this group is willing to pause for a minute and consider the considerations at hand. Okay.
Yeah, this is something I'm going to have to watch again because I think that there's some really important points that both you and Manu made.
I'm so glad to hear you say that because I love that.
And this put the importance of that fact that we appreciate that you send us the link, Steve.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For me, I always try as much as possible to watch again.
Yeah. Now
What
I've been
we
doing that on Wednesdays. Is that okay if I do it on Wednesdays?
yeah.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
And I can
I'm
tell you
doing
when
that.
I read it, when I listen again, the animal that I see is not the animal I thought I was.
Yeah, I agree with you. And what I've done, you guys, is I've
That's-
combined the invitation with the link to the video. So on Wednesday, you get the invitation for the Saturday call and you get the link to the previous Saturday. And I'm doing that every Wednesday. That's what I'm doing.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Oh,
Yes.
you bet.
that is a self-discipline, Steve.
That is a self-discipline. And
Oh
I've
yeah,
been very
that's what
disciplined.
it is. That's what works best
And
for you.
and I would
And
have
discharging that function that you have.
and
Yeah.
I would definitely look up the book and I'll send it to you. Drive.
Yeah, please.
It gets to exactly what it talks about incentives in a knowledge-based economy and how what really makes people.
If you'll send that to me and to Anne, I will put it in the notes for the
Oh, great.
What book is that?
Yeah.
Called
Yeah, that
Drive by Daniel Pink.
Oh, right.
Yeah, so it was just
Okay.
why
It's
you know
called Bride or Drive?
Drive, DRIVE.
Right.
Maybe
It's
I'll
a
just
very
put it
quick.
here. I'll put it Drive, and you said it was by Daniel Pink.
HP.
Yes, yeah. Oh, you know Daniel Pink.
Yes, I know him.
P-I-N-K.
Yes. So
Okay.
yeah, he has he put together and I just started reading it myself. but it gets to the core concepts of what you were talking about a little bit earlier.
Yep.
Yeah.
Actually, a lot of this Dan Pink's philosophy is driving our school. Because I read the other book that called A Whole New Mind. Yeah, and that's where I realized we are no longer in the industrial age.
Right.
Actually, we are already done with the information age, and we're now actually in the conceptual age. So our whole entire system for education was premised on that as well. So yes, I'll check out Drive. Yeah, I've not read that book. Thank you so
Yeah.
much, though. Appreciate it.
No problem.
Wonderful. And this last couple minutes was brilliant too. And I'm going to prophesy that the next age, after the conceptual age, will be the wisdom age. I pray,
Oh, I like it.
I pray that might be the case.
That would
Yeah.
be the real enlightenment.
That would be
Yeah.
the ultimate enlightenment.
The real
You guys are my
enlightenment.
favorite people on the planet. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
See you soon.
Take care. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Take care.